Hello everyone and welcome to the Port Adelaide AFLW Fans Award Night. I've got the suit on and it's time to look back at all the amazing moments and players of this season. While it's sad that in 2025 we did not make it to the finals, I still think there's a lot to look back on. And without further ado, let's go through the Best Moment Award, starting with, of course, the Best Moment Award. This is the award that goes to the moment in the season that was definitely the most memorable, like the moment I think we'll all remember this season for being. Obviously I didn't do this last year, so I've had to retroactively put in last year's winners, but for last year's Best Moment Award, I had it as Port Adelaide's comeback against the Hawthorn Hawks in the semi-final. I think a pretty easy award for that. But as for this year's award, I've given the third place to Port Adelaide breaking the scoring record against the Gold Coast Suns after two disappointing games in round 1 and 2 to not only crack 100 but to break the AFLW scoring record, even if it was for less than 24 hours, was still an amazing achievement. Second place, I have Indy Tahau winning the leading goal kicker award. Obviously, Port Adelaide's never had a Coleman, so it was really amazing that we finally now have a leading goal kicker award. And with Tahau not only doing that, but breaking the record for the most goals kicked in a season full stop, was just, it was just an incredible moment and really exciting. But I think number one has to go to Gemma Houghton kicking her 100th. Obviously, being on the siren without a final series to potentially catch up, we knew it was now or never, and it was just so amazing that it happened literally at the last possible moment, and it just capped off a really nice end to the season, even if we didn't make finals. All right, we're now up to the Best Goal Award. This goes to a goal which was not only impressive to watch get shot, but also had great impact on the game. Last year, I retroactively gave the award to Gemma Houghton's goal against GWS that gave us that 1-point nail-biter win. But for this year, I gave the third place to Ella Head's kick from outside of 50 that somehow missed everybody and went into the goals. I still think, I don't know, maybe I don't like that. That goal doesn't get mentioned much, but I still think it looks really impressive. But obviously, second place I have given to Gemma Houghton's, obviously 100th goal, just for the moment in the game. It wasn't how special it was, but I think the easy top tier winner had to be Indy Tahau's incredible kick from the boundary in the game against Adelaide. And the fact that was the only game that got given a high, that got nominated for the goal of the week should show you just how impressive that was. And it was glad that as someone who kicked that many goals, she obviously deserved to have at least one of her goals feature on this list, and I think it was by far the best. All right, now we got the best win. This goes to the game where Port Adelaide arguably put off the best feat either by beating a really hard opponent or just playing really well. Last year's obvious winner, once again, that Hawthorn semi-final win against all the odds to make us into our first prelim, easily won. But for this year, I gave our third place position to Port Adelaide's beating of the Suns. I know a few people might have mentioned the Melbourne game, but just the fact that we kicked 100, everyone was kicking goals like nothing, and just a really solid all-round performance. And it's for that reason I give that the third place. But second place, I give to the Hawks game, where we went in, everyone thought we were going to be smashed by the Hawks, but not only did we beat the Hawks, we absolutely smoked them, kicking the most goals ever kicked on that team. So really solid win, and I always wanted to give it first, but I know you Port fans would crucify me if I didn't put winning our first ever showdown. That's such an amazing moment to finally beat the bigger sister in the Adelaide Crows, and I think it's really stamped that we are a team, that's ready to play top echelons of AFLW football. But that's the moment awards done. We've now got the player awards, and we'll start with the Debutante Award. The Debutante Award goes to a player who isn't a trade-in, sorry Ella, and last year I think it was pretty obvious that award had to go to Sinead Goody, who had an absolutely stellar breakout season as a winger. However, this year it was definitely a bit more of a challenge. While last year we had obviously Goody and Window, this year the debutantes haven't been quite as impressive. But I think I've got three debutantes who deserve, who at least get some notoriety. And I think we start with in third place Lily Patterson, who had two really good games against North and St Kilda, where she did a really solid job in the midfield that I think at least getting her notoriety, and hopefully we can see more of that next year. Second place, I think she might have won as she played a few more games this year, but that has to go to Lauren Young. Obviously, being an unofficial #1 draft pick, there's a lot of expectations on her. And I think she had some solid games. I think that Geelong game was pretty good. The Bulldogs game was pretty good. But we'll see what she can do next year. But obviously, I still think what we've seen this year has already been pretty amazing. And finally, in first place, I think it was pretty obvious the winner. It has to be Jasmine Sowden. As the only player who, I think she played all but like 2 games this year, she was clearly the obvious debutant and hilariously the last person we picked in the draft. So it's pretty impressive that she's been able to jump everyone picked before her. But she's turned into a really solid high-pressure forward, and she's shown some promise at the end of this year, and she could hopefully take it to the next level come 2026 and really become a solid piece in our forward line. But regardless, I think Jasmine Sowden is easily our best debutant this year. All right, the best breakout player. This goes to the player who really took it to the next level. So they obviously had to play last year. And I think last year's award is an easy win by Matilda Schultz, who, totally announced herself as the ruck of the competition, winning the Rising Star Mark of the Year. Easy breakout season. But it might surprise you that I have Schultz again in third place, because not only did she have a breakthrough, I think this year she had a lot more consistency. There was really not a bad game from Matilda Schultz this year, which is just really impressive. So if she hadn't broken out last year, I think she would have been higher on this list. But regardless, second place, maybe it's a bit controversial, but I've given it to Jasmine Stewart. Just for those last few games of the year, she was amazing. And I feel really sad that she's been dropped from the team because she was really showing a lot of potential. But before I mention first place, I do want to give a little shout out to Molly Brooksby, who I think had a decent season this year. But the other one I also want to mention is Piper Windu, who I think she would have won this award had she not been constantly getting injured and barely played this year. So fingers crossed she might be winner for next year. But the winner this year, it's Indy Tahau. Like, going from an ACL to a makeshift forward who somehow kicks the leading goal, there's no other way it was going to be anyone but Indy Tahau, who's gone from no name to AFL superstar in one season. Like, that is an impressive rise. So, all right, now we're getting into the position awards with the best defender. Obviously, our defense was a bit iffy this year. And it's been a little bit hard to figure out players. But regardless, I mentioned last year's winner I had given to Ebony O'Day. I think there's just a few games that she really put her body on the line, especially that Hawthorn semi-final. She was the reason the Hawthorn couldn't get the ball out of 50. And it's for that reason that she won that year. But this year, she unfortunately hasn't made the top 3. Because in third place, I have Tegan Jermack, who, I remember she's just had a few games this year where she's been an absolute rock in, marking a lot of balls going inside 50 and being a solid defence. Although I think she didn't quite get as many good games as second place Molly Brooksby, who definitely that Hawthorn game, she was a really solid part of, stopping the Hawks getting goals and getting our ball back into our forwards for our goals and solid. But I think it's an easy call to say the best defender of this year has to be our Sydney pickup in Ella Heads, who won several, I think, coaches' votes and players' votes from in her job in intercepting marks and also getting up forward and kicking a few goals, as we saw. So, obviously, amazing pickup from Sydney. And all right, let's jump to the midfield. If the defence was weak, the midfield was sort of a bit of a mixed bag, where we also had some amazing moments getting the ball down forwards, but we also had some really bad turnovers and bad defensive efforts, which put a lot of pressure on the defence. But regardless, we had last year's winner as, I think, Abby Dowrick. I think she was an obvious choice, being sort of our main midfielder and getting the ball forwards and having a lot of key games. As for this year, our third place is Ash Woodland, the makeshift forward turned midfielder. Obviously, it's a new role and she definitely struggled a bit at the start of the year, but really came into her own in the later part of the year. I think that Brisbane game with 25 disposals and something like, 13 inside 50s is just such an amazing highlight. And if she had a more of a consistent year, she probably would have scored higher. But I've tipped the second place award to Abby Dowrick, who once again just shows a solid midfield. one or two games where she was a bit of a non-factor, but most of those other games, the key moments when we were getting the ball into our goals, she was clearly there. But I think I'm going to give the number one spot to Matilda Schultz, just for consistency. Once again, she never really had a bad game this year, Matilda Schultz. She was always a key marking target when we were trying to get the ball outside of our defensive 50. And, obviously, wish she had a few more goals. Her kicking accuracy was a bit off. But besides that, she was being a solid marking target and midfield, and just a running speed and ground ball. There's nothing this player can't do. But regardless, we have to talk about, obviously, probably our most solid group of players, and that is our forwards. Our forwards are definitely difficult to choose who was the best here. Actually, it wasn't, but there was definitely a lot of good forwards to choose from. Last year, I think Gemma Houghton was the obvious winner, especially with those roles in the finals where she was a major goal kicker and obviously club's leading goal kicker. But this year, I've given the third place award to Caitlin Pope, and the reason why I've given it to her is there's been those games where we've really struggled in the early part of the year, and Caitlin Pope was one of the key figures in continuing to put her heart and soul into it when the rest of the team was really falling behind. And obviously she had some pretty amazing goals, like that one against the Suns and that one against Fremantle in round one. Second place I've given to last year's winner, Gemma Houghton. Obviously, kicking 100 goals, second place leading goal kicker in the AFLW. It's crazy to think we had both 1 and 2. But yeah, just absolutely amazing game in the later half of the year. Kind of wish she was a bit more effective in the first part of the year, but Houghton seems to have the thing of building into years, but that's not a huge problem. Before I mention first place, I do want to give a shout out to Justine Mills-Robinson, who had, I think, a few really good games as a forward. Just wish she had a few more games where she was a bit more of a factor. But regardless, number one was pretty easy. It's going to be Indy Tahau again. Leading goal kicker. She was just a marking beast up forward and then converting them all into goals, and having a 3-goal game, a 4-goal game, and then a 5-goal game. Is there anything she can't do inside 50? Easy winner. But with that said, we're finally up to the big award, the Best Player Award. Obviously, this award goes to the player who just was, the definitive number one player on our team for most of the season, for the most games. Last year, this award was, I'm just going to go with what the club said and give it to Matilda Schultz. Obviously, breakout season, rising star, and an amazing ruck. As for this year, I've decided to give the third place to Abby Dowrick. She was second place at the club last year, but I think there's one player who's overtaken her this year to push it into third place. Still had a solid season, just where she would really move to the next level. Comparing her to an Ella Roberts or a Georgia Prasparkas, they just usually she got a little bit more of a ball magnet out of her. But regardless, still an amazing season. Third place, really good. Second place, it's Indy Tahau again. Obviously, being one of the best forwards in the competition and kicking that many goals is incredible. And I think she deserves that notoriety in getting second place. But first place, and I think the only person who's won their award twice in a row, it's Matilda Schultz. Just the being at the consistency, taking her best games of last year, making them all the games this year. She's the only player I've never once watching a game going, oh, darn it. She's always seems to be the most reliable player outside of maybe a few missed goals. But I think we can let her off the hook for that, for what an amazing season she's had. So once again, congratulations, Matilda, on winning the Best Player Award 2 years in a row. And with that, we're at the end of the awards. To recap, for the Moment Awards, we have Houghton kicking 100 goals as the best moment, Tahau's boundary kick in the showdown as the best goal, and us beating the Crows as the best win. As for the Player Awards, we have Jasmine Sowden being the Debutante Player of the Year, Indy Tahau both being the Breakout Player and Best Forward, Ella Heads being the best defender, and Matilda Schultz being the best midfielder as well as the best player. Well guys, stay tuned for my upcoming season review and review of our off-season pickups. But until then, let's go Power!